everybody to the Arts in Action Community Forum today. We have a pretty packed agenda, so we thank you for your attendance here. We realize that there's plenty of competing priorities, so thank you for taking some time out to spend some time with us this morning. We're going to go over a little bit of kind of the tech part of things, and then also we'll do an overview of the day as well. We are recording this session because we want to also be able to share this with your colleagues that were not able to be here today. So we want to make sure that they also receive the information that we're presenting today. So we will be recording. And we also at some point wanted to take a quick screenshot because we do want to share the information on the website. But if you're uncomfortable with being in the screenshot, you can turn your cameras off at that time, but we'll make sure to let you know when we get to that point in the agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Smeza, who's going to start us off with a land acknowledgement.
Awesome, everyone. Thank you so much and welcome. I'm going to start you all off. Sorry if I'm looking at my screen. I'm actually looking at my little device that has the agenda for today. So just to show you that I am present. Hi, my name is Smeza Keegan. My pronouns are she, hers. And I just want to start off today with the land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is something that we are trying to do at CNM a lot more these days, but also we want to pair with some action. We have some tools for you all we could share with you at the end of this presentation, but really want to just acknowledge our ancestor indigenous tribes before and presently in the area and the land that we are on. As you see on the screen, we do have a map of the different tribes and nations that are on and located in this region. We suggest different things if you want to try and contact and offer different services as arts community, trying to ingrain and not really forget about the past, but also just take action for the present and the future. So just take a few seconds, if you can all just have a big collective breath. And just remembering to be present here in this moment, but also here in this community forum for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Smeza. We're going to do a quick overview of the day for today's agenda. We'll post that up. So we're going to have go into a welcome shortly, and then we'll do a quick overview of the sessions. One of our sessions is on the LA Arts Recovery Fund and Recovery and Grants that Ellah Ronen will be presenting. We will then have a welcome check-in from Danielle Brazell of DCA, the general manager of DCA. We'll go into a second section towards the later this morning, where you'll have the option to take one of either session. Keep in mind, we'll be recording, so if you're unable to attend one, you will have the information available to you. One of the session options is Innovative Fund Development Concepts. Will be presented by Jason Frazier, who's our fund development specialist here at CNM. And then we also have federal grants for shuttered performance venues that will be presented by Brenda Reynolds of DCA with Ronald Spencer from the Small Business Administration. We'll have a quick wrap up and kind of check in reflections for the day. And then we'll also have optional and structured time towards the end from about 12 to 12:15 if folks would like to stay after and exchange information. And then also if our presenters are available to take more questions or check in with you, they'll also be available as well. So that's what the agenda is looking like for today. Okay. And let's go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and move into the agenda. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Regina Birdsell, who is the president and CEO of CNM, who is going to welcome us today. Regina?
Thanks, Alicia. It's so great to see you guys. I was thinking this morning that, you know, some of you were in sessions with us last spring. And boy, that seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? When you were talking about hosting events and bringing people together and having some creative opportunities to share some space. And what we worried about in the spring and the summer and the fall with all of you is we kept hearing about how can we survive this window without some support? We can't offer our programs, we can't raise money, just so many hard decisions about furloughs and shutdowns and layoffs. And so it's great to be able to get together today because, people heard you from the government and from the world of philanthropy that number one, I don't think there was ever a doubt that the sort of arts and culture space was going to be key to our recovery and our healing. But I think for a while you were just competing with food and housing in crisis, and it was just really a dynamic time. So we're excited today, thanks to our friends at the LA Department of Cultural Affairs, that we could offer some relief, which is some new funding that's coming up pretty quickly. And as you know, whenever there's federal dollars, sometimes applications are complicated. With some of the grants that are coming up, thanks to local philanthropy, we want to make sure that you know about the deadlines and the requirements and their areas of focus. So, and then to be practical, sometime with Jason to sort of think about your own fund development planning and some of your opportunities going forward. So we know it's been bumpy. We know it's been stressful. We're really glad to spend time with you, and it's great to see familiar faces there. So I am going to turn it back over to Alicia so that we can get started. And I know one of the things that we wanted to know is to put in the chat how you're doing. We'd like to hear how it's going for you. And if there's good news, if there's lessons learned, if there's just those oh shit moments that you just think I can't go on, but I'm glad to be with people that understand, please put it in the chat. You're not alone with any of those feelings. Absolutely part of the point today is so that you can connect with peers and come up with some ideas about what comes next for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Alicia and we'll get started.
So yes, if you can go ahead and thank you, Regina, so much for that. If you definitely want to share some updates on what you're seeing, also how you're feeling today. I know we wanted to kind of do a check-in. We know that time is we're in a bit of a crunch in terms of the presentations and stuff. But yeah, if you want to just put a quick word, like how are you feeling today? Like how are things going for you? And hopefully we'll be able to address some of your questions, especially around funding and resources that are going to be available. So in terms of an overview, we were just going to talk a little bit about what the sessions are going to be covering today. Our first session is starting in about 5 minutes or so. So we'll go ahead and prep for that. And it's going to focus on the LA Arts Recovery Fund. Ellah Ronen from the California Community Foundation will be providing an overview of the funding that is going to be available through that fund. And then after that, we'll have Danielle Brazell, who will come back and she will stop by and just check in with everybody and talk to you a little bit about what's going on as far as the DCA Department of Cultural Affairs perspective. We'll take a quick break after that, because we also realize that folks need to check emails, check phone calls. So feel free if you need to do that. It should not be an issue. And then we'll go into our final session, which will be the 2 breakouts. There's going to be a second breakout session that'll happen. So what we'll do is we'll put the link in the chat. And if you'd like to go to that session, then Smez will be covering that session, and you'll go to that, and then we'll bring you back to this session. We'll give you the link to come back to the general. And that'll be on the innovative fund development concepts from Jason. Really wanted to just make sure that we check in with you on fund development from all perspectives, not just philanthropy, the corporate side, and everything else, and make sure that we're checking in. And we're also getting your feedback on what you're seeing and what needs you have, because that helps us better plan for our seminars and our conferences as well. And then we will have the Small Business Administration, so you'll be able to check, go to that presentation if you'd like, on federal grants for shuttered performance venues. And then we will come back and have a quick wrap up. And then also we'll have the evaluation. And then we also want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming up from CNM in terms of some of the additional seminars that are coming up after this, and our conference that's taking place in May. So we want to make sure that we make you aware of that as well, as to what else is available. So, all right, we can now, let's check in and we can get started to get into the first presentation. Let me make sure, Ellah, if you'd like to go ahead and share your screen, and we can go ahead and get started.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
I
okay,
can.
I can't see you, so vocal acknowledgement is great. So thank you so much. As was said, my name is Ellah Ronen. I'm a senior program officer at the California Community Foundation and the CCF admin lead on this fund. I also want to acknowledge that Angie from the LA County Department of Arts and Culture is also here, and they are one of our leading partners on this fund as well. So glad that she can be here. And just finally, also want to say proud board member of CNM. So excited to be here wearing two hats, and love being able to be part of this work as best as I can. So I hope that this is all useful and enjoyable for all of you today. So the LA Arts Recovery Fund, we're just going to talk a little bit about the fund, the eligibility requirements, the selection criteria, the review process, the timeline, how you actually submit your application through the online portal, and then we'll open it for Q&A. This is all on our website, and yesterday we had a webinar as well, and that webinar will be posted to our website today. So if you miss anything, it's all there, don't worry, and I just want to leave as much time as possible for Q&A. We also, you'll see at the end, have a dedicated inbox. So if you have any questions that are specific to you and your organization, or just anything that you want clarity on, please don't hesitate to email that inbox, and we're checking it regularly and trying to reply as soon as things come in. So the fund overview. The LA Arts Recovery Fund is a pooled fund of more than a dozen funders with the aim of providing multi-year operating support for small and medium-sized arts organizations impacted by COVID-19. Looking at those with smaller budgets that play vital roles in their communities that have been impacted by the crisis that we have all been enduring, with the idea of providing a meaningful gift to those arts nonprofits. Eligibility. So if you're a 501c3 yourself or fiscally sponsored and you provide art service organizations to LA County residents and are also based in LA County, meaning your headquarters, your principal offices need to be in LA County, then you are eligible. The organization has to have a primary mission of providing arts and culture programming, and this doesn't include living collections such as botanical gardens, zoos, and art service organizations, meaning organizations that may provide capacity or technical assistance to arts nonprofits, but don't actually provide the programs and services themselves. We'd like that the organization have the staffing support to manage the execution of the funds. That can be in a variety of ways, just as long as there is capacity to actually execute and manage the fund dollars over the minimum 2-year period. And we would like to see organizations have at least 3 full consecutive years of arts programming in LA County. In terms of an annual operating budget, it is limited to organizations with $10 million and under prior to March 1st. So having a smaller to mid-sized budget prior to the pandemic, not having a budget that was reduced to this size as a result of the pandemic. Again, really looking to focus on small and mid-sized nonprofits in LA County. And nonprofits have to have a board or advisory council as well. Just to be a little bit clearer about who is not eligible for the fund, organizations whose primary mission is to raise funds are not eligible. We're really looking to fund direct service providers. Educational institutions that lead to a degree or diploma, such as public schools, colleges, universities, even if they have their own arts department or arts program that is its own separate 501c3, unfortunately, these institutions would not be eligible for this fund. Municipal or county government agencies are not eligible. This includes friends of type organizations. So if it's a separate C3 whose mission really is to support the implementation of the municipal or county programs, then those themselves would not be eligible as well. And then of course, organizations that are not primarily arts related. So We're looking at this to be demonstrated as having 75% or more of the applicant's organizational budget devoted to arts programming. Individual artists are not eligible for this fund. This is really for C3 status nonprofits. And again, arts service organizations. So if you're an organization that provides capacity or technical assistance to the sector, but does not provide direct programming themselves, then they would not be eligible for this funding. In terms of the selection criteria, these are not particularly weighted in any way in terms of that one is weighted a certain percentage over the other. We're really looking at having a holistic view of what the art service organization provides and how it relates to the community and provides services to the community. So we're looking at artistic impact. Does the organization play a vital role in the community through arts programming? Does it engage and support authentic voices of the community? Is it culturally relevant? Is it engaging? And does it represent a valuable and integral dimension of the LA arts ecosystem? Community engagement. The organization is rooted in and reflective of the community it serves and is benefiting the community that it serves and where it's really focused. Diversity of cultural expression has significantly contributed to cultural life in LA County, stewards and sustains cultural traditions rooted in communities of color, reflects the heritage and creativity of diverse communities, a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and its leadership, staff, board, independent contractors are reflective of the community that it serves. Organizational leadership and vision. Is it responsive to current challenges? Is it adaptive? Has it pivoted? How have programs and services evolved in response to the pandemic, and how do they look to evolve into the future? And then in terms of financial conditions, there was a financial impact resulting from COVID-19 that directly has affected the programming and services of the nonprofit. Again, this is not particularly weighted. We're looking at the nonprofit as a whole and holistic entity, and this list is not exhaustive. It's just to give you an idea of the framework and lens that our reviewers will be working with. So the review process. An independent and diverse peer review panel will advise the representatives of the LA Arts Fund. These will be people that have in-depth knowledge of the LA nonprofit arts and culture sector, understand the purpose and intention and meaning of the fund, and also have experience reviewing grant applications. The fund was launched last week, February 9th. It will close on March 2nd at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we expect that the first week of May, applicants will be informed whether or not they will receive a grant. As I mentioned yesterday, we hosted a webinar. It will be posted to our website today, and the portal to submit applications is officially opened. You can find the link to directly submit your application. We also have a PDF of the RFP posted, so if you're like me and want to, have it in a Word doc with spell check and are easily able to edit and adjust things and share, you can do that before you submit it into the online portal. The online portal also has the ability to have multiple users working on one application. So if you have different entities from your organization that are maybe responsible for different pieces of the application, you can also do that directly in the portal. So as I mentioned, the online portal on the webinar yesterday, we took the audience through an entire application. Again, it will be posted on the website. So if you really feel like that tutorial would be helpful for you, I recommend that you go and just, fast forward, because the first half of the presentation is the same one that you're receiving today, but get to that technical assistance online portal piece. And maybe just have it on your screen and start doing it so that you understand all the different pieces. And obviously it can be saved and stopped and doesn't need to all be submitted at once. So with that, I will open it to Q&A. Regina, is someone going to be tracking questions, or should I just be looking in the chat?
I can track the questions. Is there any questions? I was looking in the chat, and so far we did have a question about if if something like this is available in Riverside. I know we can probably follow up. I know there is a Riverside Arts Council, so we can send some additional information after this. Another question, is there a predetermined average amount, and what is the total amount that will be awarded?
It's a great question. So we can't give it an actual total of the amount because we don't yet know how many applications will come in. I can tell you that we're looking to make meaningful awards that will be based on the overall organizational budget, and that grants will be unrestricted general operating grants for a minimum of 2 years. Are there any other questions?
Another question just came in. Are arts education organizations eligible?
So if you do provide direct programming and services that are arts related, then you are eligible unless you fall into one of those ineligible categories of being a degree seeking institution, for example.
There is a follow-up question to the initial question regarding the amounts. How much overall is expected to be awarded in total?
We're looking to do $40 million in funding for at least this first round.
Ellah, I'm curious,
Yeah.
given that I know, number one, that's an amazing amount of money to be available for the LA County arts organizations, and really excited. Curious, I haven't seen the application yet, but I'm imagining that you guys have tried to make it as simple and painless as possible.
You know us, Regina.
Yeah, and for like the people that haven't looked yet at the link, are there can you reduce some of the anxiety about what's going to be involved in the application process, given that they have to get moving before March 2nd?
Sure. I will say that we tried very much to keep it to as much as necessary information without providing too much superfluous asks, or if they are there, then they're optional. I think what might be the trickiest that you might want to look out for is that we are looking to see financials prior to March 1st, 2020, and then your actual finances. So just to have those two comparisons, might take some accounting on the back end of the nonprofit, but the rest of it is really just understanding your story, your narrative, your impact on the community, and really how you plan to evolve, because nothing is business as usual right now. So if you're a performing arts nonprofit, are you doing Zoom? Are you planning to do Zoom for the foreseeable future? Is there going to be a hybrid? And I think what's great about this is that it is unrestricted. It's general operating. So we want to have an idea of what you expect to spend the money on, but you're not really held to that. It's going to be, how can we make sure that our arts nonprofit community is as supported as it can be, so that we get through this time of crisis, not just surviving, but also having an opportunity to thrive through it and really make some decisions that are impactful without having it to be line itemed. So I hope that's helpful.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Ellah.
I was going to say, I see this question. So the idea would be you would get an award, and then that award would be paid out, the first part over 1 year and the second part over the second year.
Okay. There's a comment in the chat regarding prioritizing, making sure that equity and investments in lower income, underserved African American and BIPOC communities is the focus. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we were actually able to receive a $5 million matching grant from the Ford Foundation, the Cultural Treasures program, which actually is specifically allocated to BIPOC focused and led nonprofit organizations. So with that match, a significant portion of the fund is specifically allocated with that in mind. Of course, that doesn't mean that it will only be limited to that. And of course, that doesn't mean that other nonprofits are not eligible or competitive. We're really looking at the whole ecosystem, but there is definitely a lens and framework that focuses on BIPOC-led and BIPOC-focused communities.
There's a request to share info regarding formal data documents, data arts, CDP.
Well, all of the formal documents are on the website and on the application. So please feel free to go there and let me know if you have trouble finding it. There is an optional request for data arts. So you can upload a PDF of your data arts report as well. It is optional.
And also as a follow-up to the forum, we will be sending an email to participants that has links and follow-up information as well. So you'll have that as well.
Great.
There's another. Will the actual grant reviewers have experience and authentic connections to the Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities?
Yeah, the idea is that we will have it be a peer review panel that is representative not only of having that background and expertise in that specific issue area with relation to the broad spectrum of arts, but that they would also be reflective of the communities that we're looking to fund.
Have a website question. On the website, it's asking that you're an approved organization when registering. Does this need to be approved first?
So if you're new to having a login at CCF, then yes, you would put in your information and then our team on the back end will approve your application. It's just sort of a barrier to having unqualified or spammy things happen. So you'll be approved within the next 24 hours and then you can go ahead and submit.
Okay. A follow-up question to the review panelists. How are peer review panelists being selected?
So we have a broad number of contributing funders. Of those funders, we have an ad hoc subcommittee that is specifically focused on the peer review process, and they will be making recommendations on peer review.
Any other questions?
So I just want to share, if I can share my screen one more second, I want to put up our information in terms of how to contact us. So if you can see here, we have calfund.org at LA Arts Fund. We have 2 dedicated emails because people were using both. I think, people just auto type, and so different things were coming in, but they both go to the same. So you can email laartsfund@calfund.org or laarts@calfund.org. It goes to the same inbox, and I am tracking it. And so please don't hesitate to reach out with any additional questions or if you have something that is specific to you. And we look forward to receiving your applications.
Ellah, I have to say, it is so exciting to just see a title that's about LA arts recovery attached to $4 million. That is a sign of good things to come. So thank you very much. I know that you've been trying to assemble all of this very quickly and communicate as clearly as possible, and appreciate that you took the time to do this.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that because you're a board member. I know this is just so really appreciate that. Yeah,
there are a lot of people that really came together quickly and collaboratively, and it's transformational. And it's an amazing way of recognizing the importance of the arts, and want to thank all of you on this call for doing what you do. And as Regina said, there were earlier priorities of food and housing and sort of those Maslow hierarchy of needs, but the arts fits into there because the arts is what gives us hope, and hope is just as important at feeding the soul as anything else. And so we want to thank you for all that you do, and hope that we can provide just some much needed recovery in this crisis. So thank you all.
Well, we appreciate you being available and making it very clear. So we'll look forward to what comes next. And a lot of people are going to be looking forward to May, I think. All right, thank you
so much. Bye.
So Alicia, I believe that, you know, one of those voices that Ellah was talking about that really has been advocating for the arts and culture part of our community is Danielle Brazell. And I can tell you that with every funder that I was talking to over the last 9 months about what you were dealing with, I was hearing that Danielle was there knocking on doors, making the case. And we're really excited to be able to get a quick hello from you, Danielle, because I know you're busy pushing everybody to get more involved with funding the arts. So I think we can turn it over to you. I think you guys all know a familiar face. She's the general manager of the LA City Department of Cultural Affairs and an advocate for all that you're doing in a very passionate and effective and clearly profitable at the moment way. So Danielle, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Regina. And a huge thank you to you, the Center for Nonprofit Management, your extraordinary team. We are running fast and furious at the Department of Cultural Affairs. And I would say all of the municipal arts agencies, including our partners at the county, and it's great to see Angie Gaspar Milanovic here as well. But the Center for Nonprofit Management has been such an important partner for the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs for 20 plus years. And I have myself been a participant in many of your programs, the executive management program, and look where it got me. So
that's exactly right.
So, and I really appreciate it because I'm, you know, I really came up through the field, through the artist spaces and the artist-led spaces, intimate theater and alternative performance spaces in Los Angeles. And so what the Center for Nonprofit Management provided me was it was a way for me to credential up. And I really am grateful for that that ability, and to the Department of Cultural Affairs for providing those resources for me to be able to do it. Because when you're earning $11 an hour, running a small intimate theater space, you don't have a lot of resources to to credential up or to pay for that. So I really appreciate the thinking and the leadership of Joe Smoke and our grants team. Ben Espinoza and Brenda Reynolds. So I think I have just a few minutes, and before I get the hook, I want to thank Ellah for providing some really exciting information about the LA Arts Fund. We have been working behind the scenes on that in partnership with our philanthropic community, and our arts and cultural ecology writ large is severely undercapitalized. And as long as I have been in the sector, we've seen this kind of ebb and flow of like resources coming in incrementally, but we've seen a precipitous drop of philanthropic support over the past 30 years for culture in Los Angeles. And as a result, the major institutions are the ones that really have the corner market on being able to attract philanthropic dollars. What the LA Arts Fund is going to be able to do is that it is a critical moment for philanthropy, local philanthropy, to link arms, to collaborate, and then not only that, but attract national funders from Mellon and Ford, which is unprecedented. So it is an incredibly exciting moment. Today, or actually it was yesterday, the governor announced that he put $50 million in his budget for immediate relief and recovery for arts institutions statewide. $50 million is a good number. It's a good starting point. but it's not going to get us out of this hole. I'm very excited and hopeful about the Biden administration and what they are proposing to include in the next stimulus, which will have a significant package for the nonprofit arts and cultural sectors. So I have to say that there is, we're in the middle of still the storm, and the economic fallout is real. But I think that when you have the governor and the president, authorizing relief and recovery packages for our sector, that actually gives local government not only the resources, but it gives them, in a sense, the approval to focus on this sector. Because how do you focus on this sector when, in fact, we have such intense, large challenges facing our region, notwithstanding over 60,000 people who don't have homes. So I think that those competing needs do challenge us. And at the same time, one of the arguments that I'm constantly making is actually arts and cultural workers are part of not only the challenges that are facing our cities. If we don't have jobs, we're going to be sleeping on the streets too. And we are actually part and an essential component of our regional recovery. And we are going to absolutely need to have this network of independent, fiercely independent, innovative, creative organizations that are going to create the hubs of community, of commerce, of vibrancy that we want in every single community of our city. So you are all, and I just want to give you just a little bit of a window to say, you are all weathering such an extraordinary storm at the moment. But I also want you to know that there are people within the city, and our mayor has been advocating at the state and at the federal level every step of the way for arts and culture. We currently are having conversations around our budget, with the fact that the budget is so reliant on tourism. The city is going to have to figure out how we maintain the operations of the agency. But the great thing is that they are. They're not saying, how do we cut DCA? They're saying, how do we address this critical issue? And that's a marked difference in what we've seen in the past years. And then I'll just close by saying, having institutional philanthropy step up in a big way sends a huge message to every other family foundation in the city, to every elected official in the city, to every corporate, social responsibility officer, that the arts and culture are a critical component of what makes Los Angeles, Los Angeles. And so I just want to say that, keep doing what you're doing, keep innovating, keep telling the story, you matter. And, vaccines on the horizon. Let's get everybody inoculated, and let's get back to opening our doors.
Danielle, thank you so much. And what a gift you are to this city and this region. And so glad that we could bring everybody together. Sure know that it's been a tough window, but it looks like maybe there's some sunshine ahead. And really appreciate the hard work you're doing to make that message loud and clear to the folks that needed to hear it. So thanks so much. I think now we're going to take a break. You guys get a minute. Alicia, I think I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Real quickly before we take the break, I did want to also mention, and Danielle, I don't know if you wanted to do briefly talk about it a little bit. We were going to share the link after as well, the cultural services survey that will be coming out. We just want to make sure that we let everybody know here, and then we also provide the link where people can sign up for further information. So I just wanted to turn it over to you real quick to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. So I really appreciate you surfacing this again. We're partnering with Wolf Brown, which is a leading consulting firm, to do a consumer driven survey around the interest and need and desire to have arts and culture in a community. This is not for nonprofits per se. It's for any person that wants to have arts in their community, that wants to have access to a festival, a play, a theater, a dance performance. And what we're asking with our partners is to help disseminate this survey. It's a short survey, it takes 15 minutes at best. Include this in your newsletter, help push this out to your audiences. What we'd like is we'd like to have a representational sample, and we'd like to have geographic responses from every community in Los Angeles. So please, please, please help share this out. And then, you know, this is going to be an important case-making document as we negotiate the complicated budget process moving forward. But I think what the story we want to hear is, what is it that the people of Los Angeles want in terms of arts and culture? And what is it that the people of Los Angeles want in terms of access? And once we get that data, we'll be able to present that to the mayor and city council to say, this isn't just us in the field, in the sector, this is actually the people of Los Angeles speaking. So I would really love to have you all help push that out.
And we'll be sure to share the link. We did have a question though. Is this for City of LA consumers or surrounding cities too?
You can absolutely, surrounding cities, absolutely. Because of course, the city of Los Angeles is not an island. We may be surrounded by 87 other cities, but we are all fluid in this region. So, you know, for those of you that may be in Antelope Valley or Palmdale or Long Beach or Culver City or Santa Monica, please, please, please share away.
Great. Thank you for that. And as I mentioned, we'll be sharing the link as a follow-up so you can sign up. Once you click the link, you put your information in and you'll receive additional information, a link to the survey, a media kit, some newsletter information as well that you can share out to your constituents and via your organization. So we'll definitely be following up with that. We are a little bit ahead of schedule actually. So we're gonna go ahead and take a 10-minute break. If you'd like to go ahead and turn off your screens, we will reconvene at 11 o'clock. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. We are going to be breaking into sessions, but we wanted to do a quick overview and then also just get a little bit of feedback as well. If there's any, I know we had somebody ask about Riverside earlier, and we'll be following up with that. But if there's any other questions or any other resource information that you're interested in, or you have questions on, please feel free to put those in the chat, because we are going to be following up on those questions when we do the follow-up email and send some additional links to some upcoming events as well. So just wanted to kind of put that out there.
You know, Alicia, I wanted to mention one thing, and it relates to the Riverside question, which is there's a funders collaborative in that part of Southern California that you should be asking. I know that with some of the work that's going on in LA, the other counties and the other funders are taking a look at it. And the other thing, I mean, to sort of copy and mimic, but the other thing is that some of the funders in the collaborative also fund the IE, you know, or San Diego, or all over the state. So, you know, don't assume that door is closed. You should be knocking on it and asking them what's happening in your community that's similar. So sorry to interrupt. I don't want you to miss that. You know, this is a time to be noisy because they're listening.
Yeah, definitely a great point. So yeah, if there's any other questions or any other information or requests that folks would like to put, go ahead and put them in the chat. We're going to start, we're in about 5 minutes on that. So we wanted to go over a quick slide of some upcoming events, just to let folks know what else is available. And then also part of our goal of the survey, the feedback, the evaluation of the forum, is to get a little bit more information on what you would like to see, what resources, what events, what seminars, what topics you'd be interested in, and obviously how this forum went as well. But as we continue to plan for future events, we'd like to get your feedback. So we do have upcoming CNM seminars and a conference. The conference, the 501c conference, is on May 11th through the 12th. So we're currently in the process of planning for that. So you'll be getting more information. If you're on the CNM email list, you probably have received some information on that, like a save the date. So that's coming up. And then for February, we have another, actually that was today, the succession planning, but for March, We have a few seminars that are coming up. I wanted to kind of also point to the digital marketing fundamentals, as we are in this virtual realm now as a result of COVID. We're finding a lot more organizations really obviously moving to the virtual space. Marketing has been something that has come up. We've gotten a lot of questions about, how do I market my organization? How do I market my events? How do I do that? So we do have a digital marketing fundamentals seminar that's coming up in March. So just wanted to point that out. There's more information that we'll send in the follow-up email in case you're interested in registering. But we also just want to, check in with folks to see if there's anything or any in particular topics that folks are interested in seeing as we start planning for the rest of the year. We have a group internally that works on the seminars and certificate programs and the conference, but we're always interested in feedback from organizations and folks that are out in the field doing the work and working in communities and working with different entities and organizations. So again, if you have any suggestions or feedback or questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. I just wanted to make you aware of what's upcoming. And then we're also going to be most likely in the process of planning an upcoming forum that you'll be getting some more information on as well. So just be on the lookout for that in your email.
Awesome. Thanks, Alicia. So I also wanted to go over a little bit more in detail, since it might just be confusing about what our sketch, the rest of the today goes through. I know Alicia went through it a little bit, but I just want to kind of just note that there will be some more chat action coming from me. So what's going to be happening next is we're going to have 2 different breakout sessions. Session 2 is actually going, the first session is going to be a second link, which is going to be innovative fund development concept with Jason. I will be putting a link in the chat. If you're interested in going to that breakout session, click on that link. I will get that started. So you will be able, and that will be with me. And so I will go on that, we'll go to that separate breakout room for about 40 minutes. Then we'll come back to this main breakout room. I will also put the same link for the main breakout room in our little chat, the breakout session we will be having. And we'll come back and for the wrap up and the optional unstructured time. For those of you who want to stay for federal grants for Shuttered performance and venues with Brenda and Ronald, you will just stay here. You won't click on the link. It will just be in our main session. Please take in mind they are being recorded. I will record the other session as well. So if you don't get to one, you can just check out the recording for the other. And so if you have any other things, any tech questions, feel free to reach out. I just wanted to give that kind of update for you in case it gets confusing. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. I will be monitoring, and so Alicia. And one other thing is, we just want to reiterate the fact that we really take your feedback into consideration. It's pretty unique. We like to have all the grantees, but also any other arts organizations that we can help. We work a lot with all of you in our different sessions, but if there are things you want to see, like Alicia said, we're trying to get another one in March. We have so many wonderful arts organizations that we reached out and have reached out to us that want to partner. But also, most of these topics come from your feedback from the last one, like scouring the chat, putting all that stuff. And the last thing is, last time we gave you all the resources list with the recording. We will do the same for this time. And also, I really enjoyed, again, the handles. We did ask in the survey when you registered if you would like to share your emails. So for those that do not, we won't share those. For those that are interested, we will have those in a link as well. So we want to harbor as much communication and networking as we can, and virtual as well. So.
So we're going to go ahead and get ready. I think Smezva is going to put the link for the fund development session. So if folks are interested in attending that, you would just exit this session and click on that link to go to, or use that link, paste it in to go to that Zoom. And then for folks that are going to stay here for the Small Business Administration, the Shuttered performance venues, you would just stay here. And we'll go ahead and start getting prepared for that. And yeah, meeting ID is now in the chat for anyone that wants to attend that to that session. All right.
Awesome. Okay, Jason. So I will see you there. Bye, Alicia.
Bye. See you back soon.
See you there.
Okay. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let's just let everybody move to the next group that they'd like to go to. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brenda Reynolds, who is with the Department of Cultural Affairs. She is an arts associate, and she will be providing us the presentation today on the federal grants for shuttered performance venues. I'll go ahead and turn it over, and I'll be in the chat, monitoring the chat if anyone has any questions.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I see that my Small Business Administration contact is with us, Ron Spencer. So I would just like to say hello to Ron, and he will be able to answer any questions from the federal government side. I'm going to share my screen now. I have a little slide presentation of our Save Our Stages Shuttered Venue Operator Grant. Just to let you know before I start, the grant is not yet open. So what I will be presenting are steps to prepare to apply. All right, so here we go. And if I can get, whoops. Pardon me just one moment. Give me just one moment. Sorry about that. All right. Can everyone see my screen? So the Shuttered Venue Operating Grant program details. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. So just a little bit about the program. This is a program established by the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits and Venues Act, signed into law on December 27th, 2020. So this program is going to include $15 billion in grants to shuttered venues to be administered by the Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Assistance. Eligible applicants may qualify for the small shuttered venue operating grant equal to 45% of their gross earned revenue, and the maximum amount available for a single grant is $10 million. So just a little bit about who may apply for the shuttered venue grant. I have a list of possible I'm sorry, my computer's getting a little wonky on me. Previous slide had organizations eligible to apply, and Ron can speak more to this definition, but I will go through the slides and question and answer. So primarily what we want to help this community do is get ready to apply. There are several steps that you should prepare for in order to apply once the application is open. So first, you should be cognizant and have your Dun & Bradstreet number ready and available. If you don't already have one, please go to Dun & Bradstreet and apply for one. You can get one in as quickly as one day. You'll need this as a prerequisite to apply to the SAM registration, to register in the SAM program. You should organize all your documents. You're going to need to know your average number of employees, your monthly revenues over a 12-month period. That's very important to this application. You're going to need to determine the exact amount of gross revenue earned and revenue lost that your organization experienced between 2019 and 2020. Any additional information you have, floor plans, contract copies, other evidence, you should have ready because this may be asked of you during your SAM registration. The next step, once you have all of these things together, is to register for sam.gov. sam.gov is required to do business with the federal government. So in order to then apply to the Shuttered Venue Grant, you first must have an active registration in sam.gov. The next step will be to keep checking the Small Business Administration site for the Shuttered Venue Grant to see any updated information, any updated FAQs, and to be ready when the grant opens to apply.
Hey, Brenda, let me just, well, I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to inject as we go, because I think as we kind of emphasize certain things, I think that as you mentioned, the application is not ready. The portal hasn't opened up yet, but the SAMS.gov is really a paramount and very important piece of this.
Yes.
And as Brenda goes through this slide here, you'll see that there's about a 2-week processing period to get registered and get your numbers back, get your ID back through SAM. So it's very, very important that you cross your T's and dot your I's as you go through that process.
Yes. So as Ron says, it's very important to pay attention, spell check, make sure all of your information matches up. Imagine you're getting ready to do your data arts report, or you're going to your accountant with your year-end summary of financials and documents to be put into your 990. You want to have all your information together, make sure it matches up before you start to register for SAM. So once you have all that ready, you have your Dun & Bradstreet and everything else ready, you're going to go to SAM and you're going to begin to register in SAM. So here's a readiness tip. It may take 2 weeks or more once you've completed your SAM registration to be active. I want you to, again, and I can't reiterate this enough, this is a step-by-step process to register in SAM. Each section will not let you move forward to the next section until that section is complete. Unfortunately, there is no PDF, so you can download the whole thing and see what's ahead of you. That's why I'm asking you all to pre-prepare and be as complete in your information as possible in order to only have to use your application materials once to register in SAM. I want you to confirm that you use the same name throughout. Be cognizant if your 501 determination letter has a different address from your Dun & Bradstreet number, please reconcile that before you apply to SAM. You want to have the same address, the same name, the same numbers throughout the application in all of the sections. And there will be certifications and verifications at the end of this process. So you want to make sure when you're certifying and verifying, you're using the information that you've already put in and not different numbers or different names. Here are several things that you will need as you register for SAM. The site to register for SAM is login.gov. You're going to be asked, why are you registering? You're going to want to put in there only for federal assistance opportunities like grants, loans, and other financial assistance programs. You're going to need your organization ownership information. That's going to be your officers, your board, anyone registered with your organization. You're going to need your bank account information. You need to know if it's a merchant account, if it's a checking account, if it's a savings account. You'll need to know your routing number. You'll need to know everything else about your banking account in order to enter it into SAM. You're going to need to know your executive compensation information. This may be asked of you, and sometimes it is required. As a prerequisite to SAM, you're going to have your DUNS number, your Dun & Bradstreet number. You're also going to have tax identification number, but really your employer identification number. The employer identification number is a type of tax identification number. You're going to want to have to use the same number throughout. You're going to need to get a cage code. If you don't already have one, this is going to be assigned to you during the registration process. This is your commercial and government entity code. This is also a code required to do business with the federal government. You're also going to need to obtain your NACE code. This is another code required by the federal government. And if I could ask Ron to just briefly explain the NACE code. I believe this is
Yeah.
going to be all Sector 71, which is arts, entertainment, and recreation. From there, you get 4, 5, or 6 more digits.
Yes, exactly right, Brenda. And it's the NAICS code classification. It's the North American Industry Classification System, and it really describes the code you pick for your business. It's you're selecting a type of business, and from there you get a code, and so that's self-generated by yourself. And that's also, as you said, in addition to the cage number, which the cage number, it takes 10 days to get that number once you fill out all the paperwork and everything, because that's the one that if you need, you must have that in order, as she mentioned, to do business with the government. So the difference is the NAICS code is the code that you really pick your type of business, and then that generates a code for you. That leads to the NAICS code.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Mm.
Next, you will also need a notarized letter for your account administrator, your entity administrator, and you are going to submit that notarized letter to the Federal Service Desk. At the end of this presentation, I have additional resources, which also include links, and you can find out further information on that process there. In addition, you were going to have to, as I said earlier, comply with any required representations and certifications. This is going to ask everything from arrests to sworn testimony, etc. Some more details for SAM for you to know. As I said, you have to have an active registration in SAM to do business with the federal government. Perhaps if you've gone through the NEA or someone else for federal funding, you already have a SAM account. You want to make sure it's active. You want to renew your registration every year. And at a minimum, to register in SAM, you're going to have your DUNS, your tax identification number, and your bank and routing number to set up the EFT system that they use. In addition, you're going to know your NACE code, because you're going to be required to provide that during this application process. And I want to remind you all to please be patient, because there are numerous sections that need to be completed, verified, and accepted. Each section has to be completed in order to proceed to the next. And each section should be completed accurately, because outside verifications happen within those sections in order to finalize the registration. There's also going to be need to pass the cage code security process as well. And maybe Ron, you speak to that just a little bit.
Yeah, the cage code is a very in-depth process to go through, because it's going to ask for a ton of information, and it's really going to drive this whole process that leads to your successful completion of the SAM's registration. You will not be able to move or even apply for the loan if you don't have the your cage code assigned to you. The cage code is a 5-position code that identifies, it's your identifier to the government that you are eligible or can do business with the government and apply for financial assistance and etc. So that is where a lot of your focus need to be, on that cage number.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And then finally, as I said previously, again, I'll repeat, the representations and certifications section is going to be comprised of multiple legal questions, notarized documents, and possibly additional documentation. Just a readiness tip number 2, in case you are interested in applying for this grant, please also know you cannot be applying for PPP at the same time. And if you are awarded the Shuttered Venue grant, you can use the support for these following expenses as listed here. I won't go over them all in depth right now, but understand that these are, this grant is being administered from the Emergency Readiness Office. And so these payments are going to be things to shore up your business.
It's the way this is structured, the lead agency on this, I apologize for interjecting here, but the Office of Disaster and Assistance is the agency that's taking the lead on this, and then it's supported by some other agencies that reach out to their constituency and really help drive those and help assist those entities with the qualifications required to be eligible for the SOB grants. Okay, so the Office of Disaster and Assistance. One other footnote I need to add to this is to let you know how the frequently asked questions has grown. Last week it was 5 pages. Now, if you go to the website, it's 14 pages of good, solid Q&A that's going to really help you become familiar with the entire process. So you've got some resources available to you. And in the interim, if you think of questions that you don't see on the FAQs, that's where that tool is developed from input from your entities such as yourself. But the definition for gross revenue, earned revenue, all those definitions are really explained in layman's terms for you when you visit that website and get the FAQs.
I was going to mention, Brenda, we'll go ahead and post the link to that, but we did have that was one of the questions in the chat. Can I ask what qualifies as earned revenue? Is it actual ticket sales or rental contracts?
Yes.
Yeah, all that's spelled out, at least all that's spelled out in there.
Yes. Okay. Here's some things that you will not be able to use this grant for. And these seem quite obvious, but I wanted to put this up there just in case the organization is in consideration of one of these items, such as a loan payment that was made, of the loan that was made after February 15th of last year. Here are some additional resources. And as Ron said earlier, the FAQs gets updated regularly. It is the second link on here. I highly recommend everyone bookmark that link. In addition, the link to the actual grant itself is our first link here. We have some more SAM links here because of the detailed process of SAM and the federal definitions of things like gross revenue. You can find those also throughout these links. In addition, we have your SBA local assistance link here, as well as more information on Dun & Bradstreet and NACE. So in addition, Department of Cultural Affairs is in the process of expanding this PowerPoint deck to assist our grantees and other organizations which may like to apply to this grant. So please stay tuned for that. Ron, would you like to further explain any other process in this registration for SAM or readiness to apply for the grant? Such as employment identification number as opposed to a taxpayer identification number. I know that's a big confusion many organizations make.
And the exact terminology for that is, again, is I can defer you to the exact wording of that question in the FAQs, but let me just digress for a second. There is 68 Office of Field Operations around the country, and there is tremendous resources in the small business offices located near you. If you need some counseling, or if you need some assistance, the field offices are there to offer just that. And I would encourage you, each entity or whoever's on this call, to look up your local SBA office and really reach out to them for some firsthand information or firsthand guidance on what you need to prepare for, and if you have any questions or need any specific assistance to help you through this process. Again, the lawyers and the wordings in the FAQs have been blessed, and that is the gospel. When you read those FAQs and the information contained in there is the best place for you to become knowledgeable of the EINs and the tax identification numbers, along with the DUNS and Bradstreet numbers.
Okay, Alicia, do we have any questions coming in?
Checking the chat right now. I am including, I included a link to the FAQs from the website in the chat, as well as a link to find your local SBA office as well. So you could take a look at that, and then we'll add that to the follow-up email. We did have one question. When is the application expected to open, and how long will it be open?
Well, that's a good question. And I guess the first thing I can tell you that they are working relentlessly to get the application approved and get the portal open. I'd have to speak to Victor about where they stand in that process and how close they are to getting the application portal set up to take applications. I'm not sure the window. I guess the longer it takes there's going to be ample enough time to get the application in and get it processed. So that window won't close because we can't set the window until we get the application portal open up. So it may not be the direct answer, but that's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, so the great news for everyone today is that you can go ahead and register for SAM and be ready to apply the minute that the grant opens.
That's exactly right. That will be my plan, because once you delve into the SAM's registration to see how much, see if you got good record keeping and got your documents together. If you already have a SAM's number, a cage number, then and it's fresh and ready to go, then that helps you quicken the process for you. But if you sit down and lay everything down systematically and organized fashion, if you have a CPA doing it for you, a lawyer doing it, you still have to produce those documents to get the proper information in, because as you hit that submit button and everything's not ready, you start at ground zero all over again. So that's your motivation.
Great.
I'm not sure if Victor was able to get on the call. He said he was going, if he could get on. I'm not sure if he was able to get on or not.
Okay. Ron, I know that fiscal sponsorship may become a question in this grant. Are nonprofits who are fiscally sponsored allowed to apply at this point?
I think so. That question, I got the FAQs pulled up here. I was just reading that question this morning.
So folks, you can see almost any question you have may be already answered in the FAQ.
It really, I was reading over that question was in there this morning about sponsorship.
Yes, and as we get more in depth into the SAM process, you may want to check back as the FAQs are updated on a regular basis as more questions come in. And it may assist you or help answer questions also along the process of registering for SAM.
We have another question in the chat. I'll go ahead and read it. My organization, Cornerstone Theater Company, is a theatrical producer that creates theater and venues and site-specific locations with defined performance and audience spaces throughout LA. We can demonstrate a loss in earned revenue from 2019 to 2020. Are we disqualified though because we do not have permanently fixed audience seating to the floor or ground?
There is a question in the FAQs that addresses that as well, especially about the fixed seating versus the not fixed seating. And it's 14 pages of those questions. I don't want to, for the sake of time, I want to give you the right answer to that question, but they can pull those up right now, Brenda, off of that website, and that question is in there answered. That question is in there.
Okay, so then within the live venue operator and theatrical producers, you'll find the definition in the FAQ to help answer the question about fixed seating. And
yes,
I recommend, if you don't find the answer there that you're satisfied with, to reach out to your SBA local representative to have a conversation with them directly regarding your situation.
That's a good point. Also, it's probably going to generate another question. If you don't see your question answered in there, there's a link where you can ask a question. You can email your question in, a specific question, But I think these 14 pages pretty much answers all the questions out there. A great majority of them.
We had one more question in the chat. We're a nonprofit live performance arts organization. Our performance venue and school has to close down due to COVID, but we are not a regular performance venue. Do we still qualify for the grant?
I would have to run that question. I didn't see anything pertaining to that. I would have to be exact on that, Alicia. I would have to have that question email me so I can flow it up, or that person can just flow that question to sbo.gov, and I think it goes right to that to that queue for that.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the queues right now so you can see the type of questions being asked. So as you can see, this is a very detailed process with lots of minutia. And we have our SBA friends here to help us out to answer those questions at the federal level. As a municipal funder, I can tell you, I know everyone who applies for a grant with the city, you have your BAVN number, you have your BTRC number. So these are federal numbers you're going to be required to acquire in order to apply for these federal grants. It's very similar, but it is much more in depth as it is a federal grant and not a city grant. So you'll find many, many questions answered here. And I hope that I can answer any questions today with Ron's help that you may have in beginning this process. The real crux of my presentation today is to help you all begin to get registered in SAM. Since the grant is not yet open, we're ahead of the game, and it's a great time to get everything organized, get your DUNS number, your TIN, go ahead and get your cage code, your NACE code, get your notarized letter. That may take some time during COVID. You'll have to understand each section as you go through, and the Small Business Administration is here to help along the way, as well as Department of Cultural Affairs to the extent that we can.
Okay. Just to circle back, there was one, this might be close to the question about the fixed seating. It was a question, is a drive-in movie theater without fixed seating eligible to apply? And the answer was no. Per the Economic Aid Act, a motion picture theater operator must have at least one auditorium with a motion picture screen and fixed audience seatings. So a drive-in movie theater is not eligible to apply for SBOG. There is some definition in here about fixed and non-fixed entities.
Yes, I believe, Ron, that in this situation, this theater company doesn't have a fixed location for performances.
Oh, okay.
So they may use a location that has fixed seating from time to time, but that is not the general operating procedure for them to be in a brick and mortar with their own fixed seating.
Gotcha.
So I think that was a question asked, and that may be something that we would help them look into, given that this may not be the right application for them.
Right. Right.
But it might be. So we want to help as many people as we can. And so if the FAQs don't answer, do you recommend that Cornerstone reach out to their
local
SBA?
The local SBA office, exactly. Yes, Brenda. That'll be it's local. They can walk in there. Or virtual, everything's virtual now, but they can definitely get some good assistance from the local SBA offices. Exactly. Yes.
In the chat, we have someone suggested look under eligibility number 7 and number 8 regarding mobility entity. So there's that. And then there was another question. What is the criteria of how they will choose who to award the grant to?
Go ahead, Ron.
I would, if they meet all, if all the boxes are checked and the eligibility criteria that they fall under, I would imagine they would be eligible for that grant. It'd be kind of speculative, but on my part to answer that without knowing a little bit more. But I think the eligibility definitions, they can almost themselves analyze or go through there and see if the boxes are checked that fits their entity to see if it's worth putting the application in.
Yes.
But I think if they stand, if they have less than 50 employees, there's $2 billion set aside for smaller venues and organizations. So it's something they're trying to get everybody the assistance that they deserve. But the eligibility part is going to be a big key of it, big key part, and it's pretty straightforward.
Great. Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Alicia, did we have any other questions?
Let me check the chat. Any other questions, anyone? I'm going to put a link to the LA district office. I don't want to assume everybody here is from LA, but the link earlier had where you can type in your address and it'll show you who your local office is. But I'll go ahead and do that now. Any other questions on this topic?
No, and Alicia, you have the deck here, so feel free to share this so that all of these additional resources can be shared.
Hey, Brenda, that really your deck really highlights the things and information, because some good information, and also the links that they can get additional information. So it pretty much illustrates or gives a good idea of what's required. So
Thanks, Ron.
that's good.
Great. Well, Alicia, I think we're almost at time.
We're a
should
little
I-
ahead of schedule.
Are we?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a little bit. Was there any other information that you wanted to share on SVO or anything else related to anything upcoming for DCA? If so, definitely we have some additional time that we can do that.
Well, I would just like to say that our Corona Memorials grant application is now open. And our other grant programs will reopen this fall. The Corona Memorials application is in lieu of our Arts Activation Fund at the moment due to not being able to present things in person. It's been very enlightening learning about the Small Business Administration Shuttered Venue grant, and it is a very thorough, thoughtful application that I hope everyone is able to at least look into, if not actually apply to, so that federal funding could be of help to our local small and mid-sized arts organizations.
Yeah, and I shared the link to that.
Thank you, Alicia.
The information on the website, and the deadline for the Corona Memorials is May 31st.
Great.
Okay.
So if there are no other questions, I think that I'm going to let Ron go. I know he has many meetings today. Thank you, Ron, so much for coming today.
Sure, if you need anything, give me a call back, okay?
Thank you.
All righty, take care.
Thanks, Ron.
All righty, bye-bye.
All right, so we are going to wrap up. Did anyone have any other questions? If they wanted to, anything related to Department of Cultural Affairs, the specific grant that we were talking about? Because we will be reconvening. We're waiting for the other group to wrap up shortly. So we have about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes before the next group comes in. So I guess if folks want to take a quick break. Oh, here we go. Should all nonprofits be listed with Dun & Bradstreet? That's a question that came in.
It's a great idea to be listed with Dun & Bradstreet. It can only be helpful to you as a recognizing not telephone number, but identification number, specifically for the federal government. They use that number as sort of your benchmark. That is the first thing they look for. Your grant application to Department of Cultural Affairs has place for you to put your Dun & Bradstreet number in. It used to be required. Now I believe it is optional, but I highly recommend every organization to register with Dun & Bradstreet to make sure that all of your other information for your city, county, state, and federal identifiers can be easily identified. I know small to mid-sized organizations very often change organizational hands. And so if you're able to keep this information together in a digital form or with emails and passwords that can be handed off, such as not a person's name at the organization, it could be grants at the organization, or it could be administrator at the organization, so that it can help your organization not have to re-up these forms from time to time, given the change in administrators. And I see somebody, Alicia has very nicely put the Dun & Bradstreet link in the chat. It's also listed on the additional resources page of the deck. And it's a very quick process, very painless process, and you can get a number in a day.
Great. All right. So we have about 8 minutes before we reconvene. So I guess if folks want to, actually the other group is going to be coming over. They're going into 11:55. So one more question.
Historic preservation category. Well, for the shuttered venues, historic preservation doesn't quite fit into live performances. So I would look to other grant profiles that fit into the historic preservation. This originated as the Save Our Stages Act. So I'm not sure that there's a definite linear path to historic preservation in that, but feel free to check out the FAQs and see if you find something that fits with your historic preservation need. So, well, I'm delighted that we had so many people interested in this grant program, and it is just wonderful that the federal government has now included the live performance portion of our cultural community in seeing that the award for funding is necessary to help get back to business at hand.
Sounds good. All right. So the next group, they're going to rejoin us at 11:55. So we got about 7 minutes. So if folks want to just take a quick email break, phone calls, anything like that, you can go ahead and turn your camera off, and we'll be back with you in about 7 minutes.
And I'll stay on if anybody has any specific DCA questions. You can just
Sounds
put
good.
it in the chat.
Thank you so much, Brenda.
You see Carol has a hand up.
Yeah, I guess I missed somewhere because I tried to get in the other and I couldn't. So I was listening to this one, but I seem to have missed the one about, is this funding available to self-producing organizations who rent their theater venues for performances? Did you answer that question?
Well, specifically, I think that's going to be answered in the FAQ, depending on the nature of your rental situation. If you're a venue, you're allowed to apply, of course.
Right.
But in the FAQs, it's going to delineate and define what percentage of your venue is rental income, what percent. You'll need to see your earned and losses and calculate from there to see if you're eligible.
Okay, because obviously we are not a venue. We are a nonprofit performing arts organization. So I guess it would be either those types of organizations either are or aren't, but you're saying that there's something having to do with.
Do you rent theaters to perform?
We rent a theater, right, which is associated with a college, actually.
Okay, you might want to look into this further. I don't want to give you a yes or no answer right now because this is a shuttered venue grant.
Right, right.
It's not directed. The grant mentioned earlier from the Arts Fund may be more appropriate for your organization at this time.
Right.
Because if you're a venue, you're showing earned revenue from rentals, but you are the renter. So this is a question that'll be answered best for you in the FAQs. If you read them over, it's going to give you answers
Okay.
specific to your needs. Also look into the LA fund.
Okay. Well, I'm from Riverside, so or the Riverside County area, so I have to try and find out what's going on in this neck of the woods.
I see.
But thank you for answering.
Yeah, talk to your venue as well. You may be able to work out a way you can be in their application. If that theater is going to apply, talk to them and see if they're interested in applying in the grant and take it from there to discuss the relationship with them.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Somebody else has a hand up.
Somebody's raising their
John
hand.
has a hand up.
Hi, Brenda. The DCA was so helpful to us over the summer with the performance grant. So just one, thank you for your help during that.
Great.
Two, I might have missed this, but you mentioned there was another performance fund or grant that's available that maybe might be more appropriate, because we're a nonprofit presenting organization in arts education. We run a space that is a performance venue. My question was the earlier one, but I'm not sure, we're not just, this is not, our space is run entirely for us. So we had to close down because we teach and we perform at our space, but I'm not renting out the space to other people or, losing revenue because of that. But you had mentioned an earlier grant to the person who just gave a question before that I might have missed, and I guess I want to know what that is.
So I think what you're saying, let me just make sure I understand.
Sure, sorry.
You are the venue operator of your space.
Correct, yes. So we think of us as, we rent a social hall out of a church. That's a large space. You can see it behind me here. And that's our performance venue and also our classroom as well. But obviously because of COVID, we can't be inside. We've closed everything down. So when I look at the facts, it looks like we are eligible for this SBA grant.
Okay.
But I'm not, it may be a little blurry because, they may just want pure performance venues, so to speak. But again, there was something you mentioned earlier that there was another fund or grant that maybe I should look into.
Yes, earlier in the meeting, there was a presentation from the California Community Foundation. Is that right, Alicia?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'll put the link in here right now. Yes.
I think I know of this one. I'm sorry. I have some work being done here and I keep having to jump off, so I may miss that.
No, it was a coalition of philanthropy organizations that got together to create a fund for small and mid-sized businesses that's being administered by the CCF.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, they did a presentation yesterday, and it's fantastic. I'm excited about that. But I can do both of these, can I? I can apply for both of those. There's not an either or situation, is it here?
Well, you would talk to them about applying for another grant on top of this. I know for the SBA, you cannot apply to PPP at the same time.
Sure.
But for the SBA, given that your venue you're renting from is a church, I want to make sure that you get the best advice possible. Highly recommend you use the link to talk to your local SBA office, because this is one of those nuanced federal items that as a municipal funder, I wouldn't know how to give you the exact correct answer for, but on the federal level, they'll know exactly what to do. It sounds like it's possible you might qualify for both, but I would make sure that you're eligible to apply for both through the other fund. I know SBA does not have limits on other things beyond PPP, but given that it's federal and state, and they may be different. So, why not is what I say.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. Well, we're at time, and I think folks will start rejoining. We'll give them a little bit of time to get back, but feel free if you wanted to take a quick break. And Brenda, are you?
Well, we have M. Maxey on here with us who might be able to answer. Can someone renting a church for arts purposes apply to the SBA loan, Emma? You're on mute.
Okay, I've been on the call the whole time. You didn't know it, but I was listening to his question, and a lot of those answers could be in the eligibility. And I was looking at that, and I would not say, I don't want to say no. It doesn't hurt to check and verify, because there are a lot of things that are just a little bit gray line, and we want to make sure before we disqualify them. But technically, you're supposed to have a physical address and building. So they may not, or may, I don't know. I would tell them to verify it.
And how would they verify it? Go through
I don't
the
want to
sales
say,
process?
yeah, just send that question direct and ask that question direct. I was looking at the answer in the eligibility number. I put that in the chat. I said go to 7 and 8. That would have answered some of the questions. And that's part of that, looking at it. Number 8 is part of the eligibility, because it clearly says you have to have a structure located, physical address. So if there's a question about that, you can always put it in the chat box, and we can revisit that and give them a direct response.
Are you typing the chat box in the FAQ, Emma?
Yeah, we put in the Los Angeles district office, and I think Alicia, you put in also the Glendale office questions. So yeah, send them to us, and we'll make sure we get directly back to you to make sure we're not disqualifying someone before they're actually qualified, and we don't want to do that. We're trying to help as many people as we can.
Yeah, so
and
Carol
I
and John
tell you
reached out.
these. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just
I didn't hear
reiterating
what
Carol and John that they should reach out to your office directly with their questions regarding eligibility.
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Yeah, and I had put the link in here for the LA office. So, and oh, okay. And then Emma, you put lado@sba.gov.
That's correct.
Perfect. So that's the email that folks should reach out to. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you for doing that.
No worries. Brenda, thank you very much for your presentation. I told you it was very well done.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
All right. All right. So we're just having, I think everybody's coming back. See.
So let me log off and come back in. All right. Thank you. Nice.
Oh, no, you're good. Okay.
I think I have to log out and come back in.
You just stay here. You're good.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, Emma, there is a different login for the 1 o'clock meeting.
That's the one.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's different. Yeah.
So I can come off of this one. I'm not in this one. The one.
You'll see it from
Thank you, guys. Okay. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we're just letting everybody come back in. I don't know if there's other folks waiting. And oh, we got one more person. Let me do that. Thanks, everyone. Right. Perfect. All right. So, how did that go? How were the sessions? Any initial feedback from folks on the session? Helpful, thumbs up, helpful information. Now, a lot of links, we're sharing a lot of links going back and forth, and do not worry, we will be getting all the information, all the links that have been shared, along with the PowerPoint and any other resource information, and that'll be sent to everybody that's attended, so that way you'll have that information. All right, we haven't enjoyed Jason's presentation immensely. All right, great. Thanks for that feedback. All right. Shall we put the link to the evaluation? We'll put the link to an evaluation for the forum here in the chat. I'll do that shortly. And we just, I guess, wanted to just wrap up for the day and get some, have some reflections on how things went for folks. Is Leslie joining us? Is Leslie's here?
Yes, I am.
Oh, hello, Leslie. I'm putting the link here for everybody. Yeah, please, definitely, your feedback is really important. We actually review the feedback and go through it. So I just want to make sure. Want to make sure everybody has the link to
I just didn't know if you had the blood
evaluation.
saved as a picture or something like that.
Uh-oh, can someone put themselves on mute? I think we hear a little bit of a conversation
Say it again?
in the background.
No, it had the whole Department of Cultural Affairs on there. I just wanted the bean. I know, I just didn't have time.
Teresa, why don't you put her on mute?
Let's
Yeah,
start.
can we mute? Let's see.
That's what I figured. No, no, no. No.
Okay.
All right, let me call you. Are you guys just on a break?
All right.
Right,
If
my
can
mute's gonna
folks
close.
mute themselves if they're
Let me,
not?
I think it's
I don't know how. I'm trying to find the person. I can't find them.
It's Brenda.
Sorry, yeah, it's at the top. I
Oh,
can't.
Brenda. Oh, sorry. It's like I couldn't find. I was like, who's talking? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Leslie Robbins. She's our senior strategist at CNM for wrap up and reflections for the day. Leslie, take it away.
I just want to thank you all for your time. And I also want to thank everybody for the work you've been doing, especially during the pandemic. You've been really holding the sector together, creating, doing amazingly creative things, and really impacting people's lives. And I want to thank you for doing that, for not stopping, for keeping going, and really doing the hard work you're doing. I think I'm impressed with our whole sector, but I really want to take the time to thank everybody for the work they're doing. It's not easy and it's hard, but it's really important. But also want to also thank again DCA as a partner for CNM in these years, and just want to get a sense. It's been a very information-filled morning, and get a sense of what people are thinking right now. If anyone want to share where they're at, what they came away with, what questions it raised, what ahas they had. Anybody want to share where they're at? Please feel free to take yourself off mute to share. Or you can put it in the chat. Or is everybody now looking at the evaluation? The problem is as soon as you put the evaluation in, you've lost everybody to the evaluation. Anybody want to share though?
I'll share. Hi, everybody. This is Asia. I'm with No Easy Props. And I think that, part of what I was just thinking about with the day today and with the breakout as well, that, the cool thing about this time, at least for us, is that it's a different way of doing things. And I feel like all the planning that we usually do, we've sort of changed our thought process, seems collectively as people, that we now are just doing a more boots on the ground approach and just say, okay, we know that we are healers. We, as arts providers, we know that art is healing and it's important as part of this movement that we're moving into. So what can we do now, right? And it's I think that part has really struck me, that it's more, what can we do now to live this in our own lives, in the lives of our organization, and to make sure that we're doing that actively. So it's like a lot of cleaning house in our own organizations, which is cool. And at the same time, it's taking off like the mask of fear to actually really go and work with folks and communities and partnerships that maybe we haven't done before, or maybe we didn't feel like we could for whatever reason, and just being of support to other organizations. And I think that it just keeps hitting me that that's really the only way that we're probably all going to survive and this work is going to get done. So it's kind of humbling, because it's maybe not so much about all the intensive foresight and planning that we used to use as arts organizers.
Right, it's a little scary, but it's exciting. It also is, I'm gonna tell you, I think people are gonna look at the arts different. They're realizing how much it means to them in their lives, and how much the void from their not having it, and it's all of it only on the screen. So I think there's a huge opportunity ahead. Absolutely. Others, reflection? People are being shy. Well, I'm going to take that as, yep, go on.
Yeah, sure. It's Jonathan Bajor from Rediscover Center. I spent a few moments as the presentations were going, just kind of checking out the other organizations that were here, and was blown away, as always, by LA's arts sector, of the work that people are doing, the the communities that we all come from and the approaches and how different and yet how similar they all are. So yeah, just great always to see the folks who show up for events like this.
And we will be sharing the information from those who chose to do that. Great, thank you. Well, I know we've taken everybody has a lot on their plate today, so I want to thank you again for your time and the work you're doing. And as Alicia and Shmeza mentioned, we're here if you want to for other things, to let us know what's going on in your organizations or where we can meet you and help you in your capacity building and training needs. So thank you again, and stay tuned. There will be more coming up.
Yes, and Leslie, we did want to mention we do have that extra 15 minutes if people just have any questions. Also, the newest SurveyMonkey Week is updated. So I had an older link from fall. You will see Arts Forum in there. So yeah, we are staying for a little bit longer. If anyone has any questions, we are going to be coming through the chat. If you had anything, getting links and all that good stuff. So there was a lot of information today. So definitely thanks to everyone for kind of sticking it through. And like I said, we're here for a little bit longer. So any other questions, please let us know.
Thank you to all our speakers and presenters today. I know it's a lot in addition to everything that you're working on to set aside some time and provide information to folks. So I just wanted to thank Jason, Brenda. We had Ellah earlier, she was on as well, Ronald from SBA as well, who's here, and Danielle and Regina and folks for taking some time out of the day to talk to us today. So thank you for that.
Thank you for Alicia and Shmeza for your organizing and managing a very interesting and exciting forum. And I actually have to head off for another call, so please stay on and I'll see you later. Thank you all.
There we go. So today we are going to be talking about innovative fund development concepts, and what exactly does all that mean? So to give you a little background of who I am the new fund development specialist at CNM, and I am so thankful for the DCA to be providing this forum for all of our arts organizations. I'm also delighted to be presenting on this topic because I myself am a performer at heart. I was a music major in college, voice performance, and I have served on the boards of many arts organizations over the past 20 years. I've also served as a frontline fundraiser for the Los Angeles LGBT Center, Project Angel Food, and the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles, where I have been a singing member for the past 10 years. I also served as their former Director of Corporate and Community Development. So for me, I have a love and passion for the arts. So I have a question for you. What today is going to be your biggest challenge going into 2021? I want you to think about that. And when we get to our Q&A, we'll start popping in some of these questions and answers into the chat. So we're going into 2021. We've gone through 2020. We're going to review some of the findings that we've found with amongst arts organizations specifically, as well as the nonprofit sector as a whole. So what are your biggest challenges in 2021? And then name one thing that you've learned in 2020 that you plan on carrying over into 2021. I know that this year, last year was quite an experience on all of us trying to figure out what we were going to do, having to pivot. So shared experience here is going to be really beneficial for everyone because experience is knowledge. So today we're going to look at our 2020 sector snapshots. This is going to look at some of the trends that we have in philanthropy. We're going to look at discussing reopening and how that will impact your donor engagement, looking at DEI and how that's impacting fundraising and funding right now with some of our corporate and foundation institutional givers. And then we're going to look at some ideas that worked in 2020 with virtual fundraising and hear about some nonprofits that had some successes and where those were. And then after that, we'll look at challenges that we see in arts fundraising going into 2021. And then we'll have a Q&A. So looking at our sector snapshot across Los Angeles County, we see that unemployment was probably one of the biggest impacts due to COVID. This map is courtesy of the New York Times, and this unemployment rate says that it has top 30% in communities like Compton and Watts, Jefferson Park, and Pacoima. Here, when we look at how philanthropy has responded to that, so a lot of the grant funding and philanthropy that was promised and grants that were given for 2020, once the pandemic hit, we had to pivot. And so a lot of the funding, there was rapid response funding of over $100 million that went to fund hunger and essential services in the first 60 days. And then many grant makers converted their grants to support general operating support because they knew that fulfilling some of those program works was not going to be possible. They've also lifted grant deadlines and have generally been more flexible in what they're doing with reporting and how nonprofits are using funds. There's been a lot of trust from philanthropy in nonprofits, and that we'll use those funds adequately and appropriately during this time of crisis. And then with all of that in philanthropy, we saw that corporate and donors gave to meet emergency needs. So a lot of folks, just like philanthropy, when they saw that food insecurity was a major issue, housing was a major issue, any of those organizations that were supporting those initiatives, a lot of the arts funding got diverted toward that. So now we're going to look at the reopening DEI&A and virtual fundraising. So with performance spaces and galleries shuttered due to the COVID pandemic, nonprofits use their creativity to help their audiences engage, to keep their audiences engaged and entertained. And with funders' attention moving to the pandemic and support of emergency services, arts organizations were forced to pivot and find ways to recoup that lost revenue. So it was are enduring three daunting challenges at the same time. Past experience suggests that periods of disruption, will separate the winners and the losers from coming out of the crisis, and this time will be no different. So with the pandemic, the recession, and social unrest. So here we're looking at support where we have seen confidence in survival of nonprofit organizations. So this data is using this presentation as sourced from the advisory board for the arts. They're an arts leader that took stock in the past year and providing some surveys. So the data that's provided here was actually a snapshot from November 30th to December 4th. And so we're looking at some really current data. This report was published at the beginning of December. So throughout the year, we saw, confidence in arts organizations being able to survive, dipping and waning in April when, that was at the height of the pandemic. We didn't know what was actually going to be happening. Dipping again in July when we had the social unrest breaking out across America and the world. And finally in December, now that we have seen some hope with, vaccines coming to light and those coming into public, we're seeing the highest response in survival rates. So one of the big key trends, whenever we're talking about nonprofit and fundraising and survival, is where are we going to be able to find in our toolbox our donors who are going to be the most engaged. So typically with our relationships with our top 10 donors, that was where we have our most engagement with. We focus a lot of attention on them. And 90% of arts organizations say that they maintain strong relationships with their top donors. So we're looking at, the top 10 individual donors as well as their larger individual donors. These are going to be folks in major gifts programs. When we look at the foundations and grant makers and government, we're seeing to see some decline there in relationships. And then when we look at the smaller individual donors, those are primarily coming from folks who had given to crisis impact. So if you made a direct appeal, reaching out to constituents or folks on your mailing list, asking that you were in desperate need of help, these are where a lot of those new donors are coming from. These are going to be folks that may have given once, and you have an opportunity to begin engaging with them in 2021 to bring them in to become larger donors. And then corporate donors and sponsors seem to have the least engagement, I think, because primarily that when we looked at what was happening in 2020, a lot of the focus diverted from our arts organizations over to those essential services. So virtual fundraising, when we're looking at what we were able to do in the fundraising space, pre-pandemic, a lot of it was done on promotions, building the brand, sending out direct mail, email, newsletters, monthly giving programs, peer-to-peer, social media, crowdfunding, and then of course events. And so with events, we saw that that was impacted because, well, we just couldn't get out of the house anymore. So pandemic ideas led to virtual events, and some of these, with the larger galas, we had to pivot virtually. Some smaller events, including online auctions, raffles, happy hours, bingos. There was board networking where they did, poker events and cooking demonstrations. There was text fundraising, peer-to-peer events, as well as program speakers. So those are going to be possibly sessions where you are doing talks, Zoom chats with your executive director, providing updates to donors in what's happening in the space and how the organization is trying to survive. So looking at last year, most organizations did not host virtual fundraising events during the pandemic, but many are considering it for 2020. Only 43% of arts organizations hosted online fundraising events in 2020. Looking into how revenue streams were, online galas actually led to significant extra dollars. 39% said that it was a lot. 39% also said a small amount. And then we have 22% there was none or they weren't sure. Now, the thing about online events is that when typical galas, you have a lot of overhead. So when you go virtual, you cut your costs on the production side, the food, the venue, the tech that's involved for, putting on the events and the rentals. And so with that, the ROI is much greater. So questions to ask yourself. Do I have an effective stewardship strategy to sustain strong relationships with my key donors? So what is your plan? Am I working my pipeline of smaller individual donors and cultivating them to increase the size and/or frequency of their gifts? So looking at those new donors or some of those mid-level donors, what can you do now to cultivate them into becoming a major gifts donor into your portfolio and maybe even becoming a sustaining donor? And then also take a look at what fundraisers have inspired you, not only from the message and the content that they presented on their own organizations, but what platform did you like? What format was it? Was it something that was completely prepackaged with pre-roll video that was produced and then broadcast out? Or was it a live event where you felt more engaged? What was the length of the event? Did you lose interest after an hour? Were you able to sit there for 2 hours for a telethon? Those are questions that you should ask when you're looking at doing virtual fundraising in 2021. So next, talking about making progress with DE&I. So issues related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility have long been important to arts organizations. The events of 2020 made the need for progress even more intense. So did a survey of art executives and found out that nearly all arts organizations assert the high importance of making progress in DE&I, but many have yet to set public goals or attach hard metrics. So I know that many of the arts organizations in LA, especially some of the community ones, already are focused on a lens with DE&I, but there may not be measurable impacts that as a metric that you can share. So being able to convey that message with donors is really important. All elements of DE&I are critical for arts organizations, including community engagement, staffing, representation in their art, and more. Current DE&I efforts are dominated by a focus on race and ethnicity, but many have plans to expand their focus in the future to encompass other elements. And then arts leaders' top challenge is being seen as authentic while pursuing progress. So right now, here's a snapshot of how we've seen arts organizations have progress and partnerships on DE&I. So looking at this, we've seen progress on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion has been made primarily in community outreach and engagement. 56%, and then featuring musicians, dancers, and actors with 48%. And that's going to be these areas here. We've also seen progress made with featured composers and playwrights and artists, as well as education initiatives, board composition, staffing, and only 13% have made progress in audience composition. So then where can you build coalitions and strengthen collaboration? So arts organizations have found that they were able to collaborate with arts organizations already in their community. They've found prominent individuals in their community to help participate. They also worked in local schools and arts organizations in genres outside of the community. So this is one of the top ways of being able to showcase DE&I efforts for your nonprofit and for your organization is by looking at ways to collaborate and build coalitions with other organizations to highlight not only your work, but their work as well. So questions to ask yourself: does my organization have a clear DE&I vision, and is this a priority? And then am I able to convey our DE&I initiatives to patrons and funders? And is there more we could be doing in the community? So when you're looking at the foundations and corporate giving right now, a lot of the sessions that I've sat on with institutions has been talking about where is the DEI and the racial lens, and how can we apply it to the giving? Because a lot of what's happening in 2021 is that's where the focus is going. So now, performing in the new normal. I know new normal is not one of the words that we like to use, but it's the easiest thing that people will recognize. So all over the world, arts organizations are struggling to navigate the constantly shifting environment and set the right strategy to reopen their doors. At the same time, some have started reopening already or are preparing to reopen significantly ahead of others' plans. So when we look at performing in the new normal, only 30% of respondents of this survey expected to have live indoor performances at full pre-COVID capacity in 2021. And of those, only 6% are extremely confident that this will happen. So 95% will say that digital and streaming performances will still be relevant in 2021. They're also looking at limited audiences in performances indoors, as well as looking at outdoor performances. So when we're talking about your donors and funders, how are you going to keep them engaged, knowing that for the next year, we're probably still going to have streaming services, virtual concerts, virtual performances, and what are we going to do to make sure that we keep them engaged and excited about the work that you're continuing to do? So many changes expected after the return to performances with larger audiences. So what will nonprofit organizations, arts organizations do when they do return to live performances? So the bulk will be having smaller casts and shorter performances. And this will be a trend to help keep performance costs low. So they're going to have more flexibility around ticket exchange. They'll cut out intermissions. They'll lower costs. And then also looking about focusing on the blockbusters and the hits, things that are tried and true that will help drive more engagement with audiences. So now, challenges in the arts and fundraising, finding the right balance. So there are three main areas of focus for 2021 when we're talking about engaging your subscribers and donors. So one is that development offices must strike a balance between donors with transactional mindsets and those more focused on philanthropy. And while the pandemic makes offering tangible benefits a challenge. So while donors and arts organizations all share a connection to the art form itself, there are still differences in their motivations for giving. So some are driven by benefits, and then some are compelled to give for more philanthropic reasons. It's crucial that arts organizations understand the motivations of their donors and how best to serve them. This year has made shifting donor mindsets really urgent, because without live performances, access to reception rooms, donor engagement events, without those benefits, how are you going to be able to keep and encourage a mindset of philanthropy amongst all your donors, even when you can't be in front of them? Second, we have high-touch stewardship is key to building strong donor relationships. The effort required to provide it can limit expansion of the donor base. So we all understand that our bread and butter are our top donors, and 20% of our donor base provides 80% of our revenue. So with that, we many times cater to specifically those donors. And what we realize now is that with this new base of lower entry, mid-level and entry-level gifts, how are we going to encourage them to become long-lasting sustainers with the organization? It's time consuming. And so when you have to find that balance of being able to still provide stewardship to some of those donors, your high-level donors, and still find the time to be able to reach out to your newer donors and your lower level donors. And lastly, arts organizations recognize the need to attract a new generation of donors, but must navigate doing so without jeopardizing the existing donors. So one of the thoughts is that our older audiences are going to be the last to come back to us. So we need to be thinking about our younger audiences a lot, especially now. When we get back to virtual performances, to live performances, will our older donors, our older audience, feel comfortable to come into a concert hall or come into a venue? So right now, it's a persistent question in philanthropy space is how and when to find the right generation, the next generation of large donors. There are, however, some who see an alternative perspective, right? So this has proven more easily said than done. Not only is it challenging to prioritize extremely limited time away from current donors, but many donors in the new generation want different things out of their giving experience. So I know that with the virtual online performances, it's a new way to capture audiences. And I think that through social media and expansion in those platforms, you'll be able to tap into some of those new audience opportunities and donor opportunities. It's just now trying to find out how you're going to keep them engaged and keep them in your donor base. So questions to ask yourself: what high touch points do I have in my toolkit? So what does that mean? Those means like your phone calls, handwritten notes, impact reports and annual reports, birthday messages, holiday greetings. One of the things that I love to do with donors is also doing just a video thank you with your phone and doing a short little 20 to 30 second video and popping it into an email and sending it to them. It gets it's very engaging, and I get a lot of response out of that. And then who's been on my call list that I haven't called yet? I know that many of us have been so busy. You've been meaning to call them, and you feel that maybe too much time has passed to reach out to them. So I would suggest, making at least, a list of your top 10 folks that you really have not spoken to, that you really think now is the time and the opportunity to do so, and make a commitment to following up with them and just giving them a check-in call, ask them how they're doing, see how they've been managing the pandemic. Where are they getting ideas on, and where are they getting their arts needs met right now? So now we're going to go to Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. We actually do have a few questions. One thing is the A and DEIA. Maybe you want to go a little bit. I did add an article, but it'd be nice if you kind of want to go from your standpoint.
Oh, the A? It's for accessibility. So being able and making sure that your audiences are able to make it to your performances. whatever that may be. So if it's a live performance, having an audience where they can actually get into a venue, but also having access to virtual performances. So we know that there are disparities amongst technology in folks being able to access virtual performances. We also find accessibility when you're in live performances, you were able to have, a sign language interpreter. So are we going to have closed captioning along, or are we going to do other ways to make sure that those who have challenges are able to still access your programming?
Awesome, thank you. And then I have other question. One question I think it touches upon the idea of authenticity is from Lauren, which is challenges for organizations that have been committed to DE&A before the term became a buzzword to raise funds from the mainstream philanthropy sector. So if you want to talk about it, Lauren, if you want to unmute, Jason, if you have any thoughts.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi there, Jason. How are you? I'm sorry I'm not showing my picture, but that looks better than the way I look right now. So I'm a docent at LACMA, and LACMA had an since we closed down for numbers of reasons and then went virtual because of the pandemic, we've had a very active group of people exploring the IDEA aspects of our challenges as a volunteer group within a larger institution. But my concern really is on behalf of my client, Great Leap. They've been doing this work for a very, very long time. And to have funding like from the California Community Foundation for performing arts addressing this issue is critical. It's like finally people are getting it. But the reality is that the vast majority of the funders don't understand what's going on. So there's a learning curve. And the idea is in writing yet again another proposal with the bones of this new quote unquote new idea, do we need to use the term IDEA or DEIA? Is that going to really be the buzzword for getting those funds?
I think when you look at diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, I don't think the acronym itself, DEINA, is going to be the thing that's going to get you. Like if you have to, like putting that into your grant proposal is not necessarily, that is the thing that's going to be obvious. You need to really showcase in practical terms what actions you're taking that impact that it's having. So, and then why, like, why are we doing this? Why is it necessary to have whatever issue, whatever you're addressing with the diversity, then that program, why is it so necessary? And I feel that funders are getting on board with this as well. And so there is, like you said, a learning curve. So I wouldn't, and when you're looking at the individual funders themselves, whether it be a foundation or institution who's giving, or a corporation, I would ask the question, how familiar are you with these issues? And of course, they will hopefully spell it out with their RFPs, but it's definitely a question that you'll have to ask. But I feel that by just mentioning DEINA, is not going to do it.
I mean, I was begging the question, and likewise, I've in my several Zooms this week about fundraising in the arts, I've heard people use the term BIPOC, which is standing for Black and Indigenous People of Color, as I recall. So now that we have a way of saying that, of vocalizing BIPOC, I'm wondering if there are efforts that you know of that are bringing the BIPOC philanthropists together to start to get them to take more interest in their own communities?
Yes, absolutely, there is. I have some resources through Nonprofit AF. They have actually, if anyone hasn't heard of them, it's a great kind of look. They're very progressive when they're talking about community fundraising and community philanthropy, and how to get into those communities. And it's and the thing about DEIA, it's ever changing, right? It's becoming, we're starting to add in like BIPOC. Really, I started hearing it probably about a year to 18 months ago, because before that, it was just referencing people of color. So even with that, we're all coming along. And so we're all going to have to get educated along the way, especially when it comes to DE and I.
But none of this is truly new. I remember hearing the word diversity in the 80s and not actually knowing what it meant. But that goes way back. And of course, concerns with accessibility go back quite a long time. So the terminology changes, but I'm not, terminology changes, but the concerns have been there. I don't think they're new at all.
I agree in a sense that we've been looking at these diversity challenges and diversity points for decades, right? If we can go back to civil rights, we can go back to women's rights, we can go back to, all along the spectrum, there have been lines of progress. It's just now, when you're talking about the 80s and diversity, the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles at that time was groundbreaking. For someone to get on stage and sing about being gay was then. Now, is it that big of a deal? Right. So and the answer is yes, because it's now about remaining visible. So there's an evolution of how groups come through this. And so when you're looking at equity and we're looking at inclusion, those all mean different things. So when we're adding layers to that, and accessibility, that's different than diversity.
Yeah, but I mean,
Hi,
I hate to say it.
Really quickly, just to interrupt, I hate to interrupt, but we are going to be going back in about 4 minutes. And I want to honor one more question just because it does talk about fundraising. Before we go, please type any other questions in the chat. We will view them and kind of add some more later. But the question is, what kind of touches are particularly effective for younger donors?
For younger donors, younger donors.
That's a great question.
They like to be involved. They like to get in there and roll up their sleeves. So if there's anything that your organization is needing from like a volunteer aspect or something where they can feel like personally engaged and involved in doing that work, that's a really great thing to do. And whether it's, coming to help out on sets, if you're doing a fundraising event or you're doing an event, being involved that way, they're much more engaged in the actual work itself than some of the traditional philanthropists and donors have been in years past. And I think that would probably be one of the first things that I would do.
Awesome. Okay. And then I think we have time for one more question. And after I answer that question, I will be putting the link back to the main session in the chat right after I talk. So one question is, Jason, do you know off the top of your head any funders that are focused on innovation in the arts?
I will say that Mellon Foundation is always looking at that, but unfortunately their scope is very limited when you're talking about like community arts groups. So they're focused primarily on traditional classical arts. So whether it be symphonies or operas, things like that. They don't do like community choruses. They will do some dance. I I'm trying to think of like local artists. Amundsen is always another one. But I can come back to you with the list. That won't be an issue.
Awesome. Okay, everyone. So we are about 2 minutes out to go back to the next session. I have posted it in there if you want to start heading over, take a little break. I know they were just taking a break. And then Jason, thank you so much.
Thanks everyone. This was my first presentation for Center for Nonprofit Management. So I appreciate you all for being here. And I look forward. Please reach out to me with any questions you have beyond this point. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Reach out and we will be sharing some more info with all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Jason, again. And I'll see you all in the next room. Goodbye. Thanks, Jason. I'll see you.
Bye, Raimundo. Bye, Jonathan.
Aw. Bye. Thanks, everyone.